Hey, what's up, y'all? And of course, welcome to another Alternative Factuals video. So I'm going to skip the whole, like, share, and of course, subscribe thing because you already know what it is. And if you're new, be sure to do that. But I'm going to talk about today's video's sponsor. So today's video is sponsored by Cool Godly Media, who has been with the channel for quite some time. They have a vision, they have a purpose in bringing stories that are not only created by people of color, but also just creating stories that, have people of color in it as a main, kind of story, a main cast, people who have experiences that are very similar to people of color like myself and those of you who watch my channel. So I'm always supporting, their message, what they're bringing to the table. And I think it's really, really dope, especially with their new story, Koku. This is basically a more dark adult fantasy kind of genre that they're kind of putting out for this one. It's like a mythological, low-key kind of horror, but basically it's a really dark, gritty, and kind of fast-paced story. And for the most part, the premise is just basically a lone warrior wages war against a group of supernatural beings known as Jinns in order to prove himself the strongest of them all. But plot twist, come to find out he's a Jinn himself. So it's really dope to see, how they're going to tell this story, especially because Nani, in my opinion, I think it did very well, especially with the second volume. We found out a lot of details about the chosen tribe and the tribes that were fallen. Just because, it wasn't as black and white, even though it seemed like it was just typically Group A versus Group B, it definitely didn't turn out to be that way, where it seems like Group A has a lot of inner turmoil and they think they're better than, Group B simply because of, difference in ideology, which obviously is a big issue that we have as, human beings when it comes to the real world anyways. But back to Koku. Basically just follows the story of a warrior who's able to transform into a Jinn, and then this whole quest is to prove that he's the strongest being in existence. But the whole point of this story is just to kind of tell the story of, no matter how powerful or how strong you are, how strong you think you are, you can't do it by yourself, even if you don't necessarily have the family, or sometimes you may not always have the friends immediately. You have to be able to rely on somebody. You're going to need somebody's help. Very rarely do people just make it literally only on their own. And that's kind of what this story is about, just showing that you need some help. You're going to need some people to be in your corner to help progress and move forward in life if you want to achieve a goal. Now, a lot of you, I think there was a couple of you who said, like, you really enjoyed the story of Nani, for example, but maybe the art was a little too much, or maybe it was a little too artsy for you. In my opinion, like I said, I'm not really too picky about art because art is basically, meant to be perceived a certain kind of way in order to tell a specific kind of story. But I think a lot of you would enjoy this art because it's a little bit more mainstream. It still has, like, that slight inspiration from anime, but you can tell too, they still have, like, how most comic books are typically drawn, influence into it as well. So you can tell they kind of integrated that stuff into their drawing, their art style for this go around. And it's a lot less artsy for some of you who couldn't handle some of the art style from before. So I know you'll enjoy this one a little bit better. It'll be a little easier for you to digest visually, but nonetheless, the story is still there. But if you enjoy, like I said, Nani in the second volume, and the fact that, they really did, bring all those, plot points and brought it all the way back around in the second volume to like this nice, wholesome, center point, then I know you're going to enjoy these stories, because typically the stories are very well told in general. I read them myself. I'm not going to, tell you not to read them, or, I'll tell you something I don't read and say it's great, because I don't do that. I don't support that. I read the story first, and then if I enjoy it and I feel like, there's other people in the audience that may enjoy it, much like Nani, I'm going to tell you to do so. So be sure to check out Koku. It's really, really, really dope, actually. And like I said, I'm looking at this art style, and I like dark fantasies for those of you out there who want to get to know me a little better. And yeah, so check out the Kickstarter. Be sure to, go out, and remember, this is the same company that seems to be collaborating with Disney. So if they're collaborating with Disney, if their stories are good enough for Disney to be like, hey, let's collaborate, then y'all definitely need to go out and support this group, because they're definitely doing something different for the community, not only just for comic book community, but for the black community. So anyways, let's kind of dive back into today's video. So with Black Lightning not airing on the 22nd, I believe I said, or the 23rd, I want to talk about, Painkiller, his purpose, why he might be returning, besides the fact that, he's doing his own TV show. Now, besides the most obvious, Painkiller being the most appealing to, teenage girls, obviously because of CW, a lot of their shows tend to focus on that, the teenage crowd,
and then let alone if you have someone like Khalil, who is a handsome young man and he's very much in shape. At the end of the day, he appeals to, you know, that type of crowd, so obviously his show would be more likely to succeed in this type of environment on this channel. However, I'm talking about his character, his relevance to the CW, and kind of what he represents, and I'm basically gonna say he's kind of like the Winter Soldier of the CW and the CW kind of universe, at least the iteration that they've kind of portrayed on the Black Lightning TV show, and I'm going to tell you how. Much like the Winter Soldier, he was taken in by a government agency after, you know, he was working for Tobias, but he was still relatively himself, working for this government agency. They brought him back. They basically kind of wiped his mind, or locked his mind into, kind of locked it away in his own head, and allowed this painkiller protocol that knew like 50 kajillion forms of martial arts, had a lethal control over his abilities and strength, and he was just this ruthless assassin. Now fast forward to when, you know, he's free. He's still pretty much dealing with all that today and the whole painkiller protocol that's in his head. Ultimately, he's much like Bucky, where he still has a lot, or at one point he did have a lot of the Hydra control in his mind for the most part. But, you know, eventually he went to Wakanda and they did, you know, kind of sort that out and kind of took that, you know, kind of brainwashing out of his head in a really short amount of time. But he's very much like Bucky. He's always kind of battling with himself, trying to make sure that he does not fall to his old ways. His goal is to be better, to be kind of a hero. He wants to get back to the way things used to be. He wants to go back to being himself. He wants to go back to having a normal life, or as normal as he possibly can with his abilities and with his talents. Unfortunately, it's not always that simple. Even with the fall of the ASA, there's still people out there who are very much aware of his situation, what he's capable of, as well as how dangerous he truly is, and some people will not allow him to just be out there and live on, especially people like Tobias, for example. Tobias would feed information out there or put a bounty on him where he would constantly have people going after him just so they can get paid, one, but also two, Tobias hates him because, one, the last time Tobias saw him pretty much in terms of before he was a painkiller protocol was essentially, you know, he was ripping out Khalil's spine, that implant that basically gave him his abilities and his powers, and that enhanced him and kind of mutated his blood. Now he wants to make sure that when he kills someone, they stay dead, because we already know how vindictive and violent Tobias can be, and once he has made up in his mind that he's going to kill you, unless for some very odd reason you're very much relevant to his plan or what he has going on or what he wants to do, he's pretty much going to kill you. Or the second that you don't become relevant to his plan anymore, he's going to end your life. So that's one thing we need to know about Tobias. He's very much going to be after him, especially once he learns, or knowing already, that Khalil is pretty much alive and doing pretty okay as well. So that's something we need to worry about when it comes to his character. But he serves to kind of go out there, find, kind of like Winter Soldier, the whole Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, where he goes out there, he finds these metahumans, he finds these these clandestine agencies, or agencies where they seek to take advantage of enhanced human beings, and he's gonna go down, take them out, and then kind of liberate these people who are enhanced or who are metahumans, who are teenagers, who are adults, whatever the case may be, and do what he can to make sure that, you know, he can kind of redeem himself for the mistakes that he made, but also the mistakes that he made that he technically is not responsible for, because he was not in control of his own body. So without the sponsorship, honestly, this video was going to be relatively short, because there's not a whole lot out there about Khalil besides what we already know in the Black Lightning TV show. However, it's really important that we understand, like, Khalil was, you know, a very interesting take on Painkiller, especially because Painkiller only showed up for 2 issues in the original Black Lightning, so they had a plenty of flexibility to do whatever they wanted to do with his character. But I want you to let me know in the comments down below, what do you think is going to happen with Khalil? What do you think the show is going to be about? How do you think he's still relevant to the CW, you know, Arrowverse? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. And I hope to see y'all later on. Peace out.